Today is day one of my furniture challenge. A few times a year over on Instagram, I host a furniture flipping challenge. I just invite fellow refinishers to come and flip a piece with me. I put us all in a group chat. We get to know each other, which is the main reason why I do the challenge. But we have 2 weeks to finish our piece. At the end of the 2 weeks, I pick my top 3, and then I have everyone come to my stories the following Monday to choose their favorite. So in this video, I'm going to show you the piece I flipped for the challenge, and at the end, I'm going to show you all of the before and afters, the top 3, and a longer feature with the winner at the end. So you are going to be in for a treat because the theme is Into the Woods, which means we are all refinishing our pieces to wood, and there are some beautiful pieces, so you're really going to want to wait to the end to see all of the pieces. So for my piece, I chose a campaign piece. If you've been following me, you know I love campaign furniture. I got on Facebook Marketplace. I got it for $50. I had no idea what it actually was when I went and picked it up. I just knew it was something good. So when I got there, it was on the second floor of a condo, and there was two brothers. They were selling out their mom's estate. She had passed. She had such cool pieces, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't do stairs. And so they helped me haul it down the stairs, but I got it, and when I got it home, I realized it's a Henredon. Missing one brass accent. It's a little rough. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with the base, but I'm excited. So let's go.
I'm going to start by taking all of the hardware off. I like to use my 5-in-1 tool for this. It can get into those little areas gently without damaging the wood. Probably took me about 45 minutes to take all of this hardware off because there was a lot. You see just on that one drawer how many different pieces of hardware are on that drawer, and they're all held on by tiny little pin nails. But it's going to be beautiful once I get it all polished up, but it takes a while to just get all of it off. This piece was really dirty, so it had been in storage for a little bit. So I made sure I gave it a really good vacuum. I'm going to give it a really good degreasing and sanitizing and make sure that it's ready for the stripping process.
Dumond products is something I recently came across. I found their paint stripper at Sherwin-Williams, and so I've been using their products. They sent me a test kit, and so I thought we would go ahead and test it. The kit includes 3 of their products that you test on your piece first to see which one works best. That way you don't waste product. So let's test it.
So they supply everything that you need in the kit. They have the directions, they even have the gloves, they have 3 small containers of each of the different types of strippers, some chip brushes, the laminating paper, the neutralizer is for the peel away, and then some light abrasives. I'm going to use some painter's tape to section off 3 different areas. I have the Smart Strip Advanced, Smart Strip Pro, and the Peel Away. So using a chip brush, I'm just going to apply a liberal amount of each one. The Advanced and the Pro are very similar consistency. The Peel Away is a lot thicker, more of a paste. Then I'm going to apply the laminating sheets. Now I actually applied these wrong. You're supposed to put the printed side up. So I misread the directions, but actually it worked really well. A little under 2 hours later, I came back and did a test of the stripper and it was coming off really good. So especially the Advanced, you could see that it was hesitating a little bit on the Pro, and then it didn't come off at all on the Peel Away. So I used a little bit of water and a scrubby pad just to get off some more of the residue. So here's the Advanced, here's the Pro, and there's the Peel Away. So for my particular project, I'm going to use the Smart Strip Advanced. So I moved forward with using the Advanced on the rest of the dresser. I applied it to all of my drawers. I put it on liberally. I let it wait about an hour to, obviously the longer, you can let it set up to 24 hours, but I like to give it a couple hours and then I check it. You can see I'm using my carbide scraper. Now, you don't really have to use a scraper. You could use a putty knife, but I use my carbide scraper kind of like I would a putty knife, but it gives me just a little bit extra scraping so that I make sure I get as much of that finish off as possible. Then I'll use acetone and a finer steel wool to get the rest of that residue off. I had some of the laminating sheets. I actually used them wrong. You're not supposed to put the printed side down. You're supposed to have the printed side out. out. So surprisingly, it still worked really good. So make sure if you use those laminating papers, you have the print side out. But surprisingly, it worked really good. I was very impressed with the laminating paper. I had never used it before, and I used it on another drawer, and I really do believe that it made it come off quicker. It keeps the stripper from drying out so that it allows it to work faster, and I really think you use less product as well. So that is definitely something. I'll have everything linked in the comments, but that is something I definitely think I would consider using in conjunction with the stripper. So I'm really having to use my carbide scraper because I actually used the Advanced Strip Pro on the top and it didn't come off as well. So I had to use my scraper. Some people would stop here, but this is not a strip surface to me. You definitely need to get off is more residue. And so again, I'm using the acetone. I use a 00 2/0 of the steel wool. I start with a paper towel because paper towels are cheap. So I just go in with some paper towels, get off some of the residue. Then I will switch to my steel wool because I don't want to junk up my steel wool with a whole bunch of stripping residue. The steel wool will really get off quite a bit more of the finish. And then once that's done, then I'm ready to actually start sanding. I like to start with 80 on any areas that I still have finish left. You can see I had some variations where I had done my testing of the strippers. So I'm going to try to start with 80, see what I can get off. There's a lot of variations in the tone. Obviously, there's a lot of scratches and gouges. Just trying to see how much I can get off with the 80 grit. So here it is after the 80 grit. I have a lot of tones, a lot of variation, so I really feel like I need to give it a round of wood bleach. This is oxalic acid. You dissolve it in some really hot water and then you just brush it on and you let it set and dry. You can do a couple rounds if you needed to, but I only did one. To stop the bleaching process, you have to rinse it 3 times with fresh water. The reason I chose to do the oxalic acid is that it will raise the grain because it's water. So I thought, I have a lot of gouges that I may have to steam out, but the oxalic acid really helped raise the grain and actually got rid of some of my scratches. So now I was ready to move on to the body. I'm doing the same thing. I'm starting with 80. I'm using some of my contour pads to get into some of the crevices. I have the whole frame that I have to sand down, trying to get any remaining finish off so that I can be ready for finishing. You can see in some of the tinier crevices, I just use a Bondo spreader to really get into some of those fine detailed areas. I like to clean up the sides of the drawers because sometimes it has factory finish like drips and stuff from the original stain. So I like to give it a really nice sand. I just think it kind of just makes it just a little fresher. These drawers are in kind of rough shape, so I'm using my Festool to sand down some of those areas just to make it nice and fresh and clean. Now for the drawers, I'm doing the same protocol. I always start at 80, get off any finish. 80 is always takes the longest. You can see it gets off any remaining finish that I might have. I could use my sander, but honestly, because I was able to get so much of the finish off when I stripped it, it just goes really fast with sandpaper. So I start at 80, move up to 120, and then I finish at 180. This process is really actually pretty quick because I'm not having to worry about any sanding swirls or anything like that because I'm hand sanding it. Before I can go farther, I need to fix this drawer. They had it taped together with electrical tape. So I was like, okay, we need to fix this. So I'm going to use my steamer and I'm going to loosen that joint. So I need to get all that glue out. So I'm going to pry it apart and then I'm going to just re-glue it. So you can see I'm just using I should have a mallet, but yes, I'm using a hammer. I couldn't find my mallet, but I was just trying to be really careful because you don't want to, break your wood either. So after I had it disassembled, I used the steamer again to get off the adhesive that was still on the joints. I had to get that all cleared out, and then I was ready to reattach it all together with some fresh wood glue. So to put it all back together, it's just like a little puzzle. You'll see I'm just kind of tweaking it. It'll fall down and then I'll have to kind of do it again. And so, there's like a little track underneath there that it stays together. So you just have to keep kind of messing with it to get it to go into those dovetails correctly. There's probably a method on which part you should probably put in first, but I was just like, I got to keep this all together. So as soon as it all together, then I was able to apply my clamps and then I let it set overnight to dry. You can see I've had some extra supports there from the clamps. That just kind of helps apply some extra pressure. But the next morning I took all of the clamps off and it looked really good. It kind of, it's not 100% perfect, but I think we got it to where I needed to be so that the drawer will be strong and supportive and that it'll slide in and out easily. The wood bleaching took out a lot of the scratches, but I still had some deep gouges that I want to try to steam out. So the whole thing with steam is steam will lift the grain and then in theory lift the gouge, and the wood fibers are going to swell so that you won't have that gouge anymore. So I had several areas on the top that I did this to, and it worked really well. Now on the body I'm using Mohawk's wood epoxy. This is in the color oak light walnut. So it's a two-part epoxy. You just peel off the amount that you want. You knead it together until it's a uniform color and then you can apply it. I do like this. It does dry out really fast. You have to kind of work in small batches. I had lots of areas that I had to come back and put this wood putty in. I'm going to use my putty knife and I'm just going to apply it and work it into that surface, let it dry, and then I will sand it back. And then I'll come back later and blend it all in with my Mohawk blend all sticks. I had a few missing drawer stops, so I just have my little blocks of wood. I'm just going to apply some wood glue to them and put them back in place, and then that way it'll stop the drawer.
I have everything stripped and sanded down. I'm waiting just for a couple repairs, so let me show you where I'm at. Here it is. It's all stripped, sanded down. I have one coat of the bleach on top. I think it worked really good. I've got a couple of little areas I'm just filling in. All of the drawers got stripped and sanded. So I have a few drawers. I have 3 that aren't closing. So my first thing I'll do is I'll switch them around and see if that maybe they're in the wrong spot. And then if not, then I'll do some sanding and some adjustment to get them in. So I already had some problems because that one drawer was messed up. So sometimes you just got to move things around. Sometimes you have to sand drawers to get them to fit. So we'll tweak that and get that to work. Next thing I have to decide is what color. So let me show you what it looks like when you've got some, if I were to just put finish on it, just like a top coat, that is the color. And I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's got a gorgeous tone. So I'm trying to decide, do I go with a really light stain? Do I tone it? Do I seal it? I'm not 100% sure.
For the hardware, I always boil a large pot of water and then I add distilled vinegar. Then I put all of my hardware in and I like to let it soak at least overnight. And then after that, I can come back with some Barkeeper's Friend. You can either use the powder or the liquid form with some 4/0 or 4/0 steel wool, and it polishes up beautifully. Isn't that lovely? But it's a lot of hardware that we had to do. Thankfully, my daughter helped me. After that, I like to seal it with brass for lacquer. That way, it's just going to retard that tarnishing process because I like it to stay as close to the original brass color as possible. But you see how that is so much hardware. All those pieces had to be hand done. I even had to do all those little pin nails too. Now I need to fix these drawers. I really like to look underneath the drawer. I pull it out, see if there's anything hindering it from going in. And if I don't find anything, then I'm simply going to sand the wood. That's like my last resort. I don't like to remove wood from drawers if I don't have to. I sanded it down and now it will open and close freely. I'm using Mohawk's Blend All sticks to work on my repairs. These are some of the areas that I use the wood epoxy on. Now I need to make a match. And so because I'm just going to seal this, I'm trying to get it to match the color of what it looked like when I put the liquid on it. So I'm going for kind of a brownish look. I want to make sure that I get as close as possible to that. Typically what you do when you use the Blend All sticks is you're trying to match it to the color that you're going to actually stain it to. So a lot of times you stain it first, then you actually correct. Well, I'm not staining it, I'm just oiling it. So I'm doing my corrections first, then I'll seal them, and then I will oil it. I like to start light, and then I go in a little bit darker, and then I just make sure I seal it with the Easy Vinyl Sealer. On some of the areas where I had the wood epoxy, I like to make little hashes in them with my X-Acto knife. It just kind of helps replicate some of the wood grain, so it doesn't look like a big patch of wood putty. So it just kind of helps blend it into the surrounding wood. I'm going to use Osmo's hard wax oil to seal this. You can see I'm using like a little white scrubby abrasive. It's a very light abrasive. You're just simply going to wipe it on. Depending on what applicator you use is how much product goes down. So you can roll it on with a roller that puts on a lot of product, gives you a lot of durability. But I like to use the white scrubbies. Once you've applied it, then you're going to use some type of a lint-free rag and you're just going to wipe off the excess. You have to let it dry for about 10 or 12 hours. So usually just let it dry overnight and then I'll come back and do a second coat. Sometimes I do a third coat on the top as well. Now it's time to actually reattach all of this beautiful hardware. This is going to take a while. Probably took me a couple hours to reattach all of this because it didn't just have the pull. You can see there's a little pin nail underneath every single little pull as well. So many pieces of hardware. But you know, it was a very plain dresser before. And once you put all this on, it's kind of like putting on jewelry. It just makes it much more special. I had some veneer damage around where some of the drawers were hitting the hardware. So on like this one in particular, I redid where the nail hole was because it wasn't pulling freely the drawer. It was catching on the metal part. So sometimes you just have to readjust things to make sure it's functional. My last step is lining the drawers. I found a beautiful navy and gold metallic wallpaper that kind of has that Asian feel. It has the birds on it, and I think it's very appropriate for this particular style. I think it fits it really well. And this one is fabulous quality. It's probably one of the best quality ones I've used. I don't take measurements. I just kind of pull it over the drawer and then use a little bit extra, maybe a 1/4 inch, cut it. I like to line up my straight edge along the front of the drawer because I figure that's the part you're going to see the most. And then that way I only have to cut around 3 sides. So I lined it up along the front, smooth it out. You can see I have like a wallpaper spreader. It's very soft. Get out all the bubbles. Then I'll come in with another scraper and try to get into the corners a little bit more. And then I could cut it. I always like to put a fresh blade in my X-Acto knife. Then I just go around the edge of the drawer and trim off the excess. Well, let's look back at the before. This one was a bit rough. I could tell that there was some potential, but it had been used very heavily. But, oh, I love this style. So it was obviously a factory finish, had so many little veneer problems with this one. I don't know if it's because the gold hardware had kind of worn on it. I'm not really sure. And obviously that drawer with being held on by electrical tape wasn't quite cutting it. I couldn't even close the drawer. So that definitely had to be completely taken apart and fixed. But gosh, I knew it had a lot of potential because it was such a pretty piece. So after all that work, here is the finished product. What do you think? I love it. I love the tone. I love them all though, I am a huge fan of brass with the wood. Now, I know some people might think I should have gone darker, but I really like the tone. Anytime I can keep the wood what it is originally, that's just the wood. That's just the color of the wood. It is just simply oil. There's no stain. That's just natural. And it's beautiful. I love the varying tones. I think especially with the gold, I think it really shines. So, wow. I wasn't sure about the base. The base is a little bit different wood, but I think it blends nicely. All of those little repairs. Now everything works. All of the drawers function. I still have one little scratch on the top that I couldn't quite get steamed out, but it's in the back, and honestly, I'm fine with it. And so overall, all my repairs blended very good. I had lots of little dings that I had to work on, but gosh, the carcass itself, the case is just beautiful. I love the paper that I chose for this piece. I know some people don't like when I put paper in, but actually I'm keeping this dresser. So I know I kept the last one I did, but it's going to be part of my primary room refresh. I have another set with like chest and things that are going to go into my primary bedroom, and I needed a long dresser, and this is a similar tone of that. So I'm keeping this for myself, and that's why I lined it, because it's beautiful and it's going to go really well in the room. That'll hopefully be next year. We'll see. I'm a slow DIYer, but tell me what you think. Did you like this one?
Now we're going to move on to the challenge portion of the video. Because this was on Instagram, some of the footage will be vertical. I'll take you through all of the before and afters, the top 3, and then the longer feature at the end of the first place. Enjoy. The Into the Woods Furniture Challenge is done. It's time to pick the top 3. But before we do, let's take a look back at all the before and afters. Here's the top 3. Into the Woods Furniture Challenge is done and dusted. First place went to Kendall from Kendall Flips. Second place went to Alyssa with Ease Vintage Rehab. And third place went to Carrie's Furniture.
So here's Kendall's piece. You can see that it was in really, really rough condition. So after doing a full strip down, even the mirror, she bleached it 4 different times just to really even out those tones. And then she did a tan wash. And then I think this was the piece, the glazing really made the big difference, because not just the tan wash, that glaze gave it just a little bit more depth. And I think that's what really sold it for everybody. So good job, Kendall. Congratulations.
Join me in congratulating all the winners and all the participants. So many beautiful pieces. I want to thank both my sponsors, Wagner and Dumond Products. They're both contributing prize package towards the winners. And so I really appreciate them partnering with us and supporting the refinishing community. My next challenge is going to be in February, so be looking for an announcement. Thanks so much for cheering us all along.